Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Darshawn McAway. You're tuned in to Wild Podcast. By all means, go to wildpodcast.me. That's WOWPODCAST.me. Now, today we have a special guest. We have Kristine Raymond, and she's here to talk to us about her book, Tempted. Kristine, how are you doing?
I am great. Thanks so much for having me back on the show.
No problem. The last time we spoke, I was just very curious about some of the books that you put out there on the market, and you spoke about your book, Tempted. So let's tell the audience what Tempted is about, and I'm just going to give you all of my questions because I'm so curious about this book.
Okay. Well, Tempted is an erotic drama about a woman who has been married for almost 30 years, and, you know, her kids are grown out of the house, so it's just her and her husband, and their marriage is kind of rocky. So she is presented in a way with an opportunity to stray outside the marriage. And the book is about whether or not she makes that choice and the consequences that follow.
Now, the first chapter that I was able to read is a great opener, a very great opener, which leads me to all of my questions. Without giving too much of the book away because we want people to purchase it, what made you come up with this particular book idea?
You know, as with all of my book ideas, I really don't know. And I'm not just saying that. An idea will just kind of pop into my head, and I can't even really pinpoint where this one started. I will tell you that Tempted took 4 years from the time I started writing it to the time I published it.
Wow.
So it was kind of there, and I don't know, I guess just one day I started thinking, well, you know, and maybe, I don't know, maybe I was watching some celebrity thing or something, but,
Yeah.
you know, it's sometimes you see that people have affairs and, you know, everything works out. It's all good. And I kind of started thinking about, well, what would the consequences be if a person in a marriage had an affair? You know, what if it didn't all work out at the end? What could some of the fallout be? And that just kind of got me started on writing the book, and yeah, it just went on from there.
Now, your main character is Jane?
Yes, Jane Sims.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so Jane is very interesting to me just based off the first chapter. When you were writing Jane and developing her character, did she have like self-esteem issues, you know, as she's gotten older? Like what made her want to step out of it?
I don't think it was so much that she wanted to. She wasn't looking to have an affair. It was, and no, to answer your question directly, no, I don't think that she had self-esteem issues. I think it was that what she expected, what she envisioned her marriage to be at that point was not what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And her husband was very inattentive, both, you know, physically, emotionally. And she was at this point in her life where it was not going as planned, for lack of a better phrase. I mean, it just, things were happening and she didn't like where she was. She didn't like what was going on, and she wasn't necessarily thinking about, okay, well, I'm going to have an affair to spice things up. But when she's approached by this stranger who she is physically attracted to, and her husband is still not available to her, she thinks, well, you know, what can it hurt? Who will it hurt? You know, if he doesn't care, so who, you know, why does it matter if I do this?
Mm.
But she finds out that there are consequences.
Yeah. Now with Roger, what was your development for him? And I'm asking that question because without the readers being able to like have a synopsis of the first chapter like me, I have special dibs, you know. And Jane and Roger, they're so interesting because in order for in order to be tempted, there's something that you have to want. So again, my question is, what was your development for Roger? Because you have to create these characters to kind of fall in and out of love with each other.
Right. And I'm not sure that the love necessarily wasn't there anymore, because I believe that there are many different aspects to a relationship, and love is just one of them. You can love the person that you're with, but you might not like them anymore. You might not respect them. You might not want the same things, but you could still love them. So for Roger, he had reached the point in his life where he was very comfortable with how things were. I believe this in personally, that a lot of people take marriage, they go into a marriage and they think, okay, the marriage is actually the end. Like, I don't have to work at it anymore. I'm with this person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. And I don't believe that's true. I think you still have to work at a marriage, whether you're married a year, 10 years, 50 years. There still has to be an investment of your time and your attention to your partner. And Roger wasn't doing that anymore. He was, he was working hard. He was gone a lot on the job, and he was just satisfied. He just wanted to come home from work and put on the ball game and grab a beer. And he had his wife. He had his home. He didn't see that he had to put any effort into the relationship. And it's not really that he's a bad guy. It's just that that's how he viewed it. That, okay, I've got everything, so that's it. I don't need to invest anything more into it.
This book was very well thought out. I know you said you wrote it. It took you 4 years. I have to keep in mind as the reader that, Jane and Roger, they've been married for a very long time and they had kids. So this book, to me, just stepping into the real world, I've seen people's marriages kind of based off of this, where people, they have children, their sexual companionship drops down, and they just become like living partners. Is that kind of like what happens throughout the book?
Yes, I think that's how Roger views the relationship. Like, he's fine with just being there and having Jane cook him dinner and do the laundry, and he kind of takes her for granted. Whereas Jane wants more. She wants some of that spark and passion and adventure that they had when they were younger, when they first met and when the kids were young. She's not ready to just be a housewife and just take care of him and not do things together. And, she's looking, I said earlier she wasn't looking for an affair, and she wasn't, but she is looking for a relationship with her husband. She wants to get some of what they used to have back. He's very satisfied with his life as it is and the marriage, and yet she's not. But he doesn't see anything wrong with their marriage. It was just an interesting dynamic to write.
Yeah, it seems like it. That first chapter is a great opener to getting to know what Tempted is about. So, in doing this character development, do you mention the kids at all, or you just kind of give them up in the first chapter, letting the readers know that they had children?
No, the children play a part in the book, and it's not a huge part, but without giving too much away, the children come into the whole consequences thing. Right.
I figured so, because being tempted in real life, just not even based off the book right now, but being tempted in real life can really lead you down some dangerous paths. I've seen and heard plenty of stories where someone would step out and have an affair, and while they're on the way to have an affair, they have an accident and they become paralyzed. So I wonder if Tempted, talks about anything like that.
Not to that degree, but since you brought it up, it's kind of funny because I've thought of that before just in my own life, that if you go to do something that you're not supposed to, whether it's an affair or whatever it is, that would be the time that, yes, you would have the accident, or you would be a witness to a crime, or whatever.
Yeah.
That's why you shouldn't lie. You should just do what
Right.
you're supposed to do.
Does Jane end up, kind of explaining to Roger why she had the thoughts that she had about, being tempted?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And I guess I'm trying to keep it in the book world, but when someone is tempted, I've always been told that you're only tempted by what you want. So just based off of this conversation, did Jane really want what she experienced from Derek?
She thought she did at the time.
Mhm. Mhm. See, this is so good. This is why I wanted to have you back on, because now I'm even more tempted to read this book, So let's tell everybody where they could follow you on social media and go to purchase Tempted.
Well, the best way to find me is on my website, which is www.KristineRaymond.com, and that's Kristine with a K. Tempted is available on all major platforms: Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple, Google Play, Kobo, and the links are right there on my website. I'm also on Facebook. I'm trying to become more active on Twitter, and I have accounts at pretty much all of the social media platforms. I'm just most active on Facebook.
Got you. Well, I'm your host, Darshawn McAway. We're talking to author Kristine Raymond about her book, Tempted. Go buy this book. The first chapter is a great chapter. I am glued, and I am going to purchase this book because I'm so curious to see what happens throughout the rest of this book. Kristine, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you for having me back.
No problem.